Yeah, man, it was kind of, it's classic crazy story. I think that, well, so this is what I'll say, and maybe this is, I'm being too, I don't know the right word, but it started when I started. It was 2008, height of the recession. I started there, you know, depths of, I guess, the depths of recession rather than the heights. And I was sitting in this room with the CEO when I interviewed. I was like right out of college, and I sat in this room with the CEO, and I was like, it was like, this is gonna be $1 billion company one day. And in my mind, I was like, okay, cool, man, let's do it. And it was small. It was like a company that was like maybe I think the last valuation was like 25 million or 20 million. So it was like a small company, right? And we were able to grow up to $1 billion company. And I think that it didn't come in a straight line, right? There was like downs and ups and downs and ups, and
Yeah.
you get there eventually, and it's pretty wonderful. But the real thing now is that like people open the gates at $1 billion these days. Like Clubhouse, their first round was $1 billion,
Yeah.
and I think that you see these like pre-revenue SaaS companies raising at 40-50 million dollar valuations, and raising, companies doing like 50-60 million of run rate, raising a 3 billion revenue, I mean 3 billion valuation. It's I think that the experience I had is more quaint almost than impressive at this point, because people are doing so much crazy stuff. But back in '08, $1 billion company meant a lot.
Yeah.
The term unicorn wasn't even coined at the time. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it was like a
Yeah.
20% team. We didn't know. But there's some amount of faith you have to have in this, as much as it's delusional, that like you can pull it off. Because if you don't, then you can't.
Yeah.
So it's
Absolutely.
kind of like, if the odds are 1%, let's say there's odds are 1% that you're going to do it. If you fully acknowledge it's a 1% chance of you doing, then it is a 0% chance. But
Yeah.
if you acknowledge that it's like a 20% chance of it happening, then your 1% maybe creeps up to 2%. So like you have some control in this. Destiny is in this narrow bound, but you need to believe it is in a larger bound so that it is even at the top end of the narrow bound.
Yeah. 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 You're basically, sort of paraphrasing the shoot for the moon and you'll end up in the stars or whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I definitely love that mindset. Obviously, because I'm an entrepreneur myself and all that. But I mean, it would have. I mean, it's not very usual that I meet a marketer that started, as a first hire, and now the company and you've been with the company for a while, and the company is now traded. That's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like, yeah. How did that journey happen? Like, tell me about like
Yeah, yeah.
like the milestones and
Sure, sure, sure. So
getting bigger and bigger. What?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I'll talk about that. So like we started from the bottom, now we're here kind of, but no, we started like small office, like there was a mouse that were running around in it. It was funny enough, it was like it was in Columbus Circle above this Indian restaurant, and we were with Buddy Media, was the other office in the building. They actually sold to Salesforce for like 1 billion or 800, some lots of money. So it was like
Okay.
two tech companies in this real building with mice that went on to be like pretty impressive, as stories, at least out of New York. And so so we started as an ads business, as a pay-per-call business,
Mhm.
around phone, like selling phone calls to local businesses. So if you're a veterinarian, you would sign up. We would run ads with tracked phone numbers, and if you got calls and you booked appointments from the numbers that we sent, you would make some money on it. I mean, we would charge you some money on it, but only if you made money. And so it was this kind of pay for performance, past the click, past the impression, to this phone call, to
Mm.
this booked appointment is the model. So
Yeah.
so that we started with, like, when I got there was like 4 or 5 verticals. We built
Mm.
it up to like 40, but the challenge was that we did a lot of research. And so the VC thesis was that, like, oh, it's very profitable in vets, very good in vets, and
Mm.
vets is like, one business. If you do 40 times, then it'd be 40 times that business, and you could be, multiple billion of revenue, or if it's 100 or 200 industries. But like that logic was flawed because
Mm.
we picked the most lucrative businesses. So the incremental ones you were going into were like worse than the ones you were currently in,
Yeah.
with less likely success. And every business had its own unit economics, every vertical. So like vets, we might be able to drive a phone call for cheap and sell it for good, and all the economics worked. Were like we could make money and the vet could make money. But then you went down the path like podiatrist, for example, was like very good in terms of, or not, yeah, dermatologist was very. We could drive calls very cheaply.
Mm.
We could drive a quality phone call for $4 or $5, and so we were expecting to sell it for like 40, $50. But the reason we could drive it so cheaply was because dermatologists are so full; they don't have need for marketing products. So none of them were interested in buying this product because they were like, I don't need to pay $40, I don't need to pay $20, I don't need to pay anything, I don't need to do marketing. People are dying to come to me. I'm full, and so there was a mismatch there. And then we saw the other things were like HVAC. We're willing to pay 50, 100, $200 a call. We could sign them up all day.
What is HVAC? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
heating and cooling in homes and like buildings and offices.
Okay. All right.
Heating, ventilation, air conditioning.
Okay. Yeah.
We could drive calls 50. They could pay 50, 100, $200. They were like, yeah, you give me, if you're calling me for jobs, if you can give me send me jobs, I can pay you whatever, you know. We couldn't drive them any jobs because it's hard. That's why they're willing to pay so much money. And so yeah, and then the retention was different across all the things. It was a nightmare to scale that business. So that business kind of got from 0 million revenue to like 20 million of revenue, and we raised at a big fat valuation, 125 or something. We went from 25 to 125 in a year. Again, these all sound quaint in today's world, but at the time in 2009 it was very impressive. We were, outside of Twitter, we were the fastest growing kind of on a multiple basis that in that time frame, in that year, you know. We were hot, and we grew fast, but then we plateaued because it was fucking impossible to scale that business. So then the business plateaued. We pivoted to this other business listings thing that was like tangentially related, but like more scalable, and you didn't have to learn about all the industries, and you didn't have a variable bill for the customer each month, and it wasn't as complicated to explain, and there weren't all these like individual unit economics, and you could scale to big companies, you could scale to partner channels, you could do all this other like stuff that was really good. So we spun off the old business, sold to ISC, and then we had to run it back again from zero. So in like 2011, you're starting again at zero with the new business, and you run it back to 100, right? So you kind of learn something the first time, but also the second time you had your whole stack of engineers, you had your whole marketers, you had all these resources the second time around that you didn't have the first time around. And so like I felt like we executed a lot better. Basically, you got to do the whole thing over, but like with like a bunch of stuff. You know, like if you have a video game and you picked up a bunch of items in the first level, but then you had to go back to the beginning, but then you get to keep your items, like you have a better chance of doing it the second time. And so there was a little bit of that, you know. But then also like we started really focused small business, and small business churn is high. Like, because the businesses go out of business, it's hard to build the value. I think they scrutinize every line item down to like, you know, $100 a year. They'll scrutinize really closely. And so we started there, but then eventually we got some enterprise steam. We got some partnership steam where other people were selling the product at a high scale. And so it went like where small business, when early years, when I was running small business marketing, kind of running small business P&L, I had, it was like 60, 70, 80% of the business, right? Early. And today I think it's like, the small business section does like 10 million on 400 million, some microscopic thing, you know. It was doing 10 million in 2013, it's doing 10 million now, you know. And so that was one of the things, is that the business pivoted the product, but also pivoted the go-to-market. And so between the combination of those things, we were able to get the business off the ground and really grow it. You know, there's always these ceilings though, right? So I think that there was a ceiling there, and I think that's why they're running into this problem now, where it's like ceilings at 400 million. You look, the old business, the first business ceiling was at 20, 25 million. The new business ceiling might be at 400 or 500 million, which is still good. Then you can build a decent business, you know. But also, I think also like at some point the founders and, you know, those people, like their interest goes somewhere else, right? Because like grinding out like a slow growth 10-15% business is tough, right? If you're a high speed entrepreneur that wants to like run a business that's like constantly growing, it's tough to get to be interested in that slower growth business. And I think that maybe it's more suited for kind of a private equity. I think that's why you've seen a lot of private equities do really well by taking founder-led companies out of the public markets, getting the vision to be slightly less impressive in scope and more achievable, and then flipping them back to some other public company that they can plug into that machine, kind of that Marketo story,